What's going on, guys? I'm coming at you with another video, and today I want to do a deck profile on my Mekk-Knight Invoked deck. And the reason I want to deck profile this today is because I've been really working hard on this deck, trying to perfect it, trying to make Mekk-Knight Invoked the best that I can with the card pool that I have. So I hope to explain that today in this deck profile. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're actually going to be going into the main deck, which is a 40 card main deck, 15 card extra deck, and I'm going to be showcasing you guys some side deck options, maybe like 6 cards that I personally play and my reasoning behind those. So let's get back into it. So you easily play 3 Alistair the Invoker because he gets you to your invocation, and he also has the effect where you can discard him. It is a quick effect, and any invoke monster will gain 1000 attack and defense. That is very good for more offensive plays, because the way I cater this Mekk-Knight Invoked deck is to try to OTK with Borrelsword or with Purgatrio or anything like that, and Alistair the Invoker getting you that invocation and having that discard effect is really great. So next, for the Mekk-Knight portion, we play 3 Mekk-Knight Purple Nightfall. Now I'm going to explain this once, and all Mekk-Knights have this awesome special like summoning, inherit summoning ability, where if there's 2 cards in the column, you could special summon them. Some Mekk-Knights gain effects or have effects like based on these columns, like Blue Sky, which I'll explain later, but we're talking about Mekk-Knight right now, Mekk-Knight Purple Nightfall, and his effect is you can target one Mekk-Knight on the field. You could even target himself. You can banish it. Again, targeting is cost, banishing is not cost, and add a Mekk-Knight from your deck to your hand with a different name. So the cool thing about Purple Nightfall is that if like on an attack declaration, you can kind of save himself, and he just like gets you more resources, so you can add a Blue Sky for next turn, and then he'll return during your standby phase. So he kind of just gets you any Mekk-Knight you want, and we only do play three Mekk-Knights. So we do play Nightfall, we do play Blue Sky, and we do play Indigo Eclipse. Now Blue Sky is really awesome because he has the ability to add you Mekk-Knights with different names based on your opponent's column. So let's say your opponent has 2 cards in their column, you'll be able to add 2 Mekk-Knights with different names. So you'll be able to add a Nightfall and an Indigo Eclipse. Or let's say your opponent only has 1 card in their column and you have another one to match it. You could special this guy and you could add up to 1 Mekk-Knight with a different name, of course. And Blue Sky is pretty much just a quicker way to get you into your Purple Nightfall or your Indigo Eclipse. Now I took out Red Moon to play Indigo Eclipse because I feel like Red Moon doesn't really help you like link climb, and what I really want to do with this deck is kind of just make Borrelsword and try to OTK that way. So Indigo Eclipse really helps us with that, because if you draw him and any other Mekk-Knight, you can basically special summon 2 Mekk-Knights if you have the ability to special summon a Mekk-Knight. Because you could first special this guy, move him a column, and then if you special this guy, you obviously have the 2 cards in the column, so you'll be able to special summon any of the 2, and that's just why I really do like Indigo Eclipse. I used to play him at 1, but now I'm kind of seeing his roll with the Mekk-Knights, and I really do like him at 2. So next, I did take out Kaijus for Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Now what I do like about Pankratops is his awesome inherit summoning ability, where all your opponent has to do is control more monsters than you do to special summon him. You can only special summon him once per turn, but he does also have this awesome effect where you can tribute a Dino Wrestler monster to destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So basically, let's say you're having trouble with like a Naturia Beast or anything, you could summon this guy, beat over the Naturia Beast, and then you can tribute him main phase 2 to destroy anything that may be giving you trouble, and then you could pretty much go off that way. Now I did move him for Kaijus because he does help you link climb into what I want to do with the deck, which is make Borrelsword and kind of OTK like that. And he is a pretty big beater, and he can pretty much out any floodgates you may be having trouble with. So that's why I do like Dino Wrestler Pankratops. He is a new card, and since this is a going second deck, it does make going second a lot easier, just being able to spam pretty big monsters, and I would highly recommend running him at 2. I have done a pretty good amount of playtesting, and I do like him at 2. I think 3 is too much, 2 just seems just fine. So next, for the hand trap part, I do play 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Ogre, and 2 Effect Veiler. Now these are the cards that kind of work best for me. Ash Blossom, of course, is the staple hand trap 3-up. Ghost Ogre, I feel like to destroy anything that, any like field spell or any card that's already on the field that activates, that could be giving you trouble, and Effect Veiler, again, is just such a good card. These 2 are light targets, and these 2 are targets for Purgatrio, so these 2 are for Makaba, and I just really like this ratio. I'm not such a huge fan of Joan Lockford because I don't mind my opponent being able to draw as many cards, because with a Mekk-Knight Invoked deck, having access to cards in your extra deck like Purgatrio or anything can just allow you to beat over things. So I don't really mind my opponent getting too many cards, because I feel like with this, it should be enough to stop him, if not. So next, for the spells, we do play 2 Pot of Desires. Now I did cut out Terraforming in this deck because I don't really like seeing too much of the invoke part, so we are only playing 3 Magical Meltdown and 3 Invocation. Now my reasoning behind playing 3 Invocation and 3 Meltdown is, again, I don't really want to see too much of the invoke part. I feel like this is just fine because we do play cards like Mind Control, where even if we don't open a Magical Meltdown, we are able to take our opponent's monster. And since like there's such a variety in the format now, pretty much any Mekk-Knight or any or Pinkertops is just able to give you that Alistair the Invoker of Madness, because they are different. They are different types and different attributes. So making Alistair the Invoker of Madness, taking your opponent's monster with Mind Control, which we do play 3 of in this deck, spoiler alert, is just a better it's a better like play in my opinion. And most of the time your opponent, if they do have an Ash or something, they're going to be saving it for the Alistair because they just feel like that's more of the important thing to hit over the Magical Meltdown. So I feel like even being drolled, I just would much rather see Invocation in my hand, because again, it's a card I can set to special summon my Mekk-Knights, and it's a card I can use to go into my big invoke monsters. And then finally, because we do play Alistair the Invoker of Madness, we do play one search card, which he can search, which is the Book of the Law. And this is just such a good search card because what it basically does, you tribute an invoke monster and you can special summon any other invoked with a different attribute. So for example, let's say we made Makaba, which is a very standard thing in this deck. You can activate the Book of the Law, tribute that Makaba, special summon a Purgatrio in the battle phase, and you can still attack with it. So it's just such a good card, and you can search it with Alistair the Invoker of Madness. Then we do play one searchable monster reborn, which is World Legacy Succession. Since we do play the Mekk-Knights, Morningstar is able to search this by discarding a Mekk-Knight or a World Legacy card, and it's just such a good, easy thing to do because you can discard you can pretty much monster reborn the Mekk-Knights you use to make the Morningstar, so you can easily like go into a Link 3. Then we do play 2 instant fusions because it's just easy way to get into Raijin, and it's just pretty much another Mind Control because we do play Thousand Eyes Restrict. So we're essentially playing 5 Mind Control, so taking our opponent's monster is going to be nothing hard. Then we do play 1 Sky Striker Hornet Drone, even though we don't play the engages. I feel this is just such a good one-of because it's an instant like Alistair the Invoker by drawing this. Because you can use this, make Kagari, Kagari will add this back, and you just use this again, and then pretty much Alistair the Invoker of Madness. So it's just such a good card, and not just that, it's just a really easy card like to link climb with, because again, we do want to make Borosort and OTK that way. So next we do play Scapegoat because Scapegoat is just such a good card, and it's just again it's just an easy way. It's just an easily card to defend, and it's just as easy to go on the offense with this card, just being able to special summon 4 tokens, use them for link monsters, and just pretty much do like Scapegoat shenanigans. Then we do play triple Mind Control, and Mind Control is such a good card in this deck because again, being able to take our opponent's monsters and just using them for our link plays is just such a good thing because we're removing a monster from them and we're pretty much using it for our materials. And like it goes back into why I don't play Terraforming, because we can easily make Alistair the Invoker of Madness after we special summon our Mekk-Knights, and then we take our opponent's monster, and if we do have the invocation, we can just continue like that. And if we don't, we can just use this, set it, special our Mekk-Knights, and then after we've done all our Mekk-Knight special summoning, we could activate it, take our opponent's monster, and pretty much just do our link plays like that. So I do really recommend Mind Control because again, this is a go second deck. It's really good going second. Going first, I have some side deck cards that I really would recommend you guys playing. But yeah, pretty much Mind Control, such a good card at 3. And finally, I do play double Twin Twister to wrap up the 40 card main deck. And the reason I main deck Twin Twisters, I feel like with Alter Guys being heavily represented in the format, I feel you're kind of at a disadvantage if you don't have back row removal. Because again, this deck is very... It doesn't necessarily lose quickly to back row, but it just doesn't deal with back row very easily. And I just feel like having cards to counteract back row decks is just something you should have, because if you don't, you're pretty much at a 1 game disadvantage. You don't want to side into these. You kind of want to side them out. I feel much more comfortable having these and going up against a deck with heavy back row than going against a deck game 1 with a deck with not having these in the main deck. So I kind of hope I explained that really well. Now let's talk a little bit about the extra deck. So starting off with the fusion lineup, we do play 1000 as restrict because we can't special summon them off instant fusion, and then we can just link them away for Link Karibo. Invoke Raijin because he's just easy instant fusion target. Invoke Purgatrio because he's just such a game ender and you only really need 1. If you kind of bring him out, your opponent has a full field, you kind of just go ham and just pretty much go it. My personal favorite play is Mind Controlling away, making a Phoenix, blowing a back row, and if it's Scapegoat, you just kind of win right there because you just use Invocation. Then your opponent always is going to say, you can use Invocation. Where are you gonna special summon it? Then you go, okay, yeah, no, I'm using my I'm using my Phoenix to go to Purgatrio for game. So I just really do like Purgatrio. Purgatrio is kind of like the win card pretty much. You just pretty much attack with everything, and then your Mekk-Knights just do the just take the victory lap with the life points. So yeah, Purgatrio I really do enjoy playing. One Invoke Magellanica because he's pretty big beater, why not? And then finally 2 Invoke Mekabas to wrap up the fusion like part of the extra deck. And Mekaba, again, I'm just gonna remind you guys, you can discard any type card to negate. So for example, if your opponent activates a spell, you can discard a spell to negate it. Usually you're always gonna have a monster negate because of the invocation recycling effect, where you'll be able to shuffle back a banished Alistair and add back invocation to the deck. So that's pretty good. Now let's talk a little bit about the links. So for the links, we do play 1 Link Karibo because he's really good with Scapegoat, and not just that, he's an instant fusion. Like after you go into 1000 at restrict, you'll be able to tribute the restrict or link 1 for the restrict into this, and then he does point down, so that's pretty good. Link Spider for the Scapegoat plays. We do play 1 Kagari for that Hornet Drones. It's instant Alistair the Invoker because she is fire and the token is it is an earth. So that's just pretty much that. Nightmare Cerberus again for Scapegoat plays. We do play 1 Nightmare Phoenix again Scapegoat plays, and not just that, it's just an instant access to go into Purgatrio because it being a fire. 1 Alistair the Invoker of Madness because I feel you don't really need more than 1. And then he's just such a good Link monster because beside him being 1800 attack points, is just pretty strong for a Link 2 in my opinion. He's really easy to make with Mind Control, and he just will be able to add you that Book of the Law and just pretty much go for those OTKs. Then we do play 1 Mekk-Knight of the Morningstar because bringing him out is really easy. Now you always got to remember as a Mekk-Knight Invoke player, bringing out Morningstar and Indigo Eclipse is such a good interaction because Morningstar will prevent any Mekk-Knight from being destroyed by battle with a monster in a different column. So for example, if this guy's in the middle column, let's just say, your opponent can only destroy him with a monster in the same column. So Indigo Eclipse is like able to shift around your Mekk-Knights, so they'll be protected by battle by this guy's effect. It's not an activated effect, so that's just something always good to remember. Then we play 1 Nightmare Unicorn and the boss monster of the deck, in my personal opinion, 1 Borosword Dragon. Previously I was playing a Boroload, but I just feel Borosword is just such an easy card to make with Indigo Eclipse and all the the ability you have to take your opponent's monsters with Mind Control and things like that. So pretty much what Borosword does is whenever you can switch a monster to defense position and he can do another attack. And his second effect is whenever he attacks a monster, you pretty much have that monster attack and Borosword will gain it. So pretty much he'll always be doing 3000 damage whenever he attacks. So my personal favorite play is pretty much making him going Invocation, banishing a Mekk-Knight and Alistair, making Makaba. Makaba will attack, and then Borosword will attack, and then Borosword will shift Makaba to defense, and then Borosword will pretty much attack for game. That's pretty much like 8500 damage every time I usually do it. So it's not too bad. I really do like Borosword, and that pretty much wraps it up for the extra deck. Let me get into some side deck options and some final thoughts real quick. So because I did mention that this deck does lose very heavily to back row, and it being a going second deck, your opponent is gonna in the back of his mind go, if I make this guy go first, he's instantly gonna lose because again he is playing a going second deck. So I have tested this out a lot of times and it does come in really clutch for me, and I side in 3 Inspector borders. Reason being is, again, my opponent sees I'm playing Mekk-Knight Invoked. It's a heavily reliant going second deck. Even I sometimes go, oh yeah, this deck loses if it goes first. So that's kind of when I side these guys in, and then my opponents, the surprise they get when it's just, you know, if they can out the Inspector border, you can kind of just like pretty much beat him down. It becomes Inspector border beatdown because he's a skill drain on legs, because your opponent's only going to be able to activate effects based like up to the number of different monsters he has. So if he has a fusion, he'll be able to activate 1. If he has a fusion and a synchro, activate 2. You guys pretty much get the gist of it. So that's just a really good